Hey everybody, welcome back to an all-new episode of 10 to Life with me, Annie Elise. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. I have a really twisted and kind of a long case to talk with you about today. So whatever you're doing, wherever you are, I hope you are in a just like a zen kind of place. Let's all just like rub our temples for a minute. Let's just relax. Ooh, that actually feels really good. I just like fall asleep right now. Let's just all get to a zen place. Get your comfy socks on, grab a drink, grab a coffee, grab a cocktail. If you're cleaning the house, because I know so many of you tell me you're cleaning when you listen, get that extra bleach and rubber glove because you're going to be scrubbing the shit out of your tub in a second out of anger, and get ready. Okay. Obviously, you can tell I'm a little delirious today. Okay, so I think we're all pretty familiar with the story of Cinderella, right? How she had this just like horrible, wicked stepmother, but how in the end she had her happily ever after, and that was all thanks to a fairy godmother and some little woodland creatures that did her dress and all of those things. Well, today's case deals with an evil stepmother just like that. And no, it is not Letitia Stalk, but close runner up here. But this stepmother is far more heinous than the stepmother in Cinderella. And there isn't a fairy tale ending. There isn't anybody coming to the rescue in this case. It's pretty horrific. It's also beyond cruel, and it's filled with a ton of crazy different twists and turns that really do highlight the importance of speaking up when something is wrong and not just turning a blind eye. So this one has a lot for us to delve into and to unpack. So let's jump right in. Sweet and adorable 10-year-old Zahra Claire Baker was born on November 16, 1999. She was born to a relatively young couple, 25-year-old Adam Baker and 19-year-old Emily Dietrich. The couple were engaged, but they never ended up married, and the three of them lived in Wagga Wagga in New South Wales, Australia. Now, things were not perfect for the family, as Emily struggled severely with postpartum depression. Now, like I said, Emily was a young mom. She was only 19 years old, and she loved Zahra, but the postpartum depression really took a toll on her. And it really made it difficult for her to be the kind of mom that she wanted to be. She had heard horror stories of things that moms with severe postpartum depression had done to their kids, and she didn't want to hate Zahra or become a tragic news story. So she ended up making the heart-wrenching decision to give Adam full custody of her daughter. And then she stepped out of the picture. She felt that Zahra would have the best chance at a good life with her dad and with his family. So in 2004, Adam left Wagga Wagga and moved 23 hours away to Gyru, Queensland, Australia. There, he lived with his parents, and they really helped in raising Zahra and helping taking care of her. He took a job at Wilmer Sugar Mill, where his brother and dad also worked, and over the years, Emily lost touch with Adam, therefore losing touch with Zahra. But even without her mom in her life, Zahra was a really happy little girl, and she had this very strong bond with her dad. Sadly, though, at just 5 years old in 2005, she was diagnosed with bone cancer, and this led to her having the bottom part of her left leg amputated right above the knee. Even with a cancer diagnosis, though, she had a very positive attitude. Once, she attended a fundraiser for cancer, and she went up to 44-year-old Kim Wright, who had been diagnosed with cancer and who was about to have her head shaved, and Zahra went up to her and told her, "Don't be scared." So after that, the two of them became very close, and Kim almost kind of became like a second mom to Zahra. And then when Zahra's health continued to decline and get worse, Kim would call her while she was in the hospital. And Zahra would tell her, "It's okay, I'm going to be okay because I'm going to be getting a Barbie leg, so I don't want you to be upset." Just trying to really see the positive aspect of it, and that's just how Zahra was. She was always caring for other people while keeping a great and positive attitude. Sadly, though, a few months after Zahra got her prosthetic leg and started getting used to it, the doctors found that she had tumors in her lungs, and she ended up getting diagnosed with lung cancer as well. She ended up having to go through rounds and rounds of chemotherapy, which also didn't stop the cancer, but unfortunately it left her with partial hearing loss, and she struggled to hear F and S sounds. But even that didn't stop her with her zest for life, you could call it. And also, it didn't stop her desire to help other people who had cancer as well. She was always an inspiration for fellow campers at a camp that she attended that was for kids with cancer, and she didn't let her physical setbacks ever hold her back from participating in all of the fun activities, not only the activities that the camp had to offer, but what life had to offer in general. Zahra was beloved by her community as well, so much so that the town raised enough money for a wheelchair and a laptop so that she could do her schoolwork at home. So things were going well for Zahra and her dad, all things considered. But Adam was lonely. He didn't really have a lot of friends, so to unwind after Zahra would go to bed, he would stay up late on an IMVU chat room. Now, when IMVU was created, it wasn't meant to be an acronym, but the creators want IM in there because of the whole concept of instant messaging, basically. So some people refer to it as Instant Messaging Virtual Universe or In My Virtual Universe, but essentially there you can create your own 3D avatars, and then you can enter into these chat rooms and interact with people. So in IMVU, that's where he met somebody by the name of Gothic Fairy. And Gothic Fairy was really 42-year-old Elisa Fairchild, who was a little bit older than Adam because he was just 33 years old at the time. Now, Elisa described herself as Gothic, and her avatar had these big red angel wings, and it was also wearing a gown. Adam's avatar had bat wings and wore a black duster, which is similar to a trench coat, but even longer, kind of hits like the ankles. So the two of them really hit it off in this online universe of IMVU, and they began dating. The problem here was that Elisa lived in North Carolina, a 23-hour flight away from Adam. So the two of them considered themselves in a long-distance relationship, of course. Even with them never meeting in person, Elisa considered Adam to be her soulmate, and she even wrote on her MySpace page, "Who says long-distance relationships don't work?" So not too long after the relationship began, Adam ended up flying Elisa to Queensland, and they got married in July of 2008. Now, little did Adam know, Elisa was already married, and she never had legally divorced from her last husband, Aaron Young, from 10 years prior, back in 1998. And not only that, but she had quite a few marriages under her belt, making Adam her 7th husband. Now, Elisa kind of had a knack, I will say, for marrying before divorcing, because there was a time in her life where she was actually married to 3 different guys at the same time. But Adam knew about some of her past relationships, as Elisa had 3 much older biological children, all to different men, and her children's names were Brittany Starbuck, Amber Fairchild, and Douglas Proctor. So Elisa seemed to have Adam kind of almost under her spell a little bit, and ultimately she convinced him to move to North Carolina with her. But this was not a good decision for Zahra. Not only did she not want to move away from her home where she had her family, her friends, and a community that loved her, but her healthcare in Australia was free, which was really important because of all of the healthcare issues that she had. And she spent a lot of time in the hospital, and she needed treatments often. So this was going to be expensive, and going to America just didn't make sense for her needs. It wasn't like Adam had this great job lined up either with these amazing benefits or anything like that. And Elisa didn't work either. So Adam's family and friends weren't happy with him for moving Zahra. But at the end of the day, they really didn't have a say in the matter because it was his daughter. And he felt like he was making the right choice because Zahra didn't have her biological mom in the picture anymore ever since she was a baby, actually. And Elisa really took to her while she was in Australia. They hit it off and she cared for her. So Adam figured that finally Zahra could have a mother in her life, even if it was a stepmom. So the newly married couple and Zahra moved to Hickory, North Carolina in December of 2008. And while living there, they lived with Elisa's father. Now, Hickory is 60 miles northwest of Charlotte, and it isn't a very big city. It has about a population of 44,000 people. It's known for its cheaper cost of living, and it's also known as the birthplace of NASCAR stars due to the Hickory Motor Speedway. Now, even though the community of Hickory is overall pretty friendly, it does have a fair bit of crime. But even so, people genuinely seemed to enjoy living there and calling Hickory their home. So Adam ended up taking a job as a laborer at Real Tree Services in Morganton, North Carolina, which was really just like a tree removal company. So Zahra picked up her 3rd grade year at Hudson Elementary School in March of 2009. But by that July, Elisa had a massive argument with her dad involving money, which then led to the family moving into an apartment in Granite Falls, about 10 minutes away. Even though the move wasn't that far, it meant that it was yet again another change for Zahra, as she now had to switch schools once again. Luckily, she was a pretty resilient kid though, right? And she did well in almost any situation. So this was just going to be one more situation she would adapt to. Adam and Elisa's neighbors, Shirley, who was the manager of the apartment building, and her husband, Daryl, had no idea though that Zahra was their daughter. They saw her when Adam and Elisa moved in, but they never apparently saw her again. They claimed that they would occasionally see a little girl, but they figured that it was a visitor, not a daughter. And apparently the newlywed bliss did not last long, because Adam and Elisa fought a lot. It was apparently so bad that their neighbors could hear them through the walls, and at one point, a framed photo on Shirley and Daryl's wall fell down completely because the walls were literally shaking from the fighting. Now, oftentimes, Adam and Elisa would argue in the parking lot for everyone to just see and witness. They would see these fights. They would also see that they weren't just verbal fights, but they would often turn physical. So in early November of 2009, Shirley and Daryl had enough of the fighting from their next-door neighbors. So they told them it was time for them to leave. And then a day and a half later, the Baker family was gone. It was just like they disappeared off the radar. So Shirley and her husband went to do a walkthrough of the apartment after the family had left so that they could inspect for any damages, figure out if they were going to need to pay for any repairs, money out of the deposit, things like that. And when they got to the closet that led to the attic, the door had been taken off the hinges, and a cubbyhole to the attic no longer had a door. So Shirley and Daryl thought that that was really odd, and then they got to thinking about how sometimes during the short time that Adam and Elisa lived there, they kept thinking that they heard something in the attic space. They had just figured at the time that it was squirrels or maybe some type of other animal living up there, but now they were starting to question themselves. So upon looking at the attic space a little more closely, they saw black shoe sole prints all over the inside of the door frame. Now, remember, Shirley had no idea that Adam and Elisa had a child, let alone that they could possibly be keeping one in that attic. But these were like little kid-sized shoe prints. But what was interesting is that when they had moved out, Shirley never heard those squirrel or animal noises from that attic ever again. Now, the timeline is a little bit fuzzy on where exactly the Baker family moved to next. But by December of that year in 2009, they were renting a trailer in Country Manor Estates in Hudson. Because at that point, their landlord had gave Adam an eviction notice due to him owing a little over $1,100 in unpaid rent. So they rented their trailer weekly for about $115. But apparently Adam paid the back rent because they continued living there for a while, and Zahra ended up going back to Hudson Elementary again in March of 2010. So I'm not sure if Zahra was attending school after her family moved from Granite Falls, because if they were living at the trailer since at least December, possibly longer, why didn't she start back at Hudson Elementary until months later in March? I'm not sure. And I honestly wonder if she was even in school at all for those 3 or 4 months. Part of me thinks she wasn't, and I'll get into why I think that in a little bit later. That'll start to make sense. But anyway, they were living in this trailer at this trailer park. And at the trailer park, Zahra had a ton of neighborhood kids to interact with, and she loved playing games and doing all different kinds of activities with the local kids. One of the neighbors would always give candy to the kids while they played, and Zahra was always just so thankful, giving this neighbor a huge hug and just really loving her surroundings. But one neighbor got a closer look into not only how Zahra felt, but what the true family dynamic was. One neighbor named Renee saw firsthand how Zahra was treated by her family. And Renee really didn't like Elisa. And she actually knew her just by Elisa, not Elisa, because Elisa apparently went by many different names, such as Lisa or Elise, so that she could avoid properly getting divorced and then remarried, as well as for financial reasons. So it was always kind of just like a zoo. Anyway, Renee saw Elisa smack Zahra multiple times because she was angry that Zahra couldn't run up the hill that the neighborhood kids would play on. Now, for whatever reason, she would get mad that she couldn't run like the other kids. And she had even refused to get Zahra a bike until she could run, saying that she didn't deserve one. Now, mind you, of course, she had a prosthetic leg, one that she was still getting used to. But apparently this physical contact went even further than that, and Zahra showed up to school oftentimes with signs of this abuse, such as a black eye. And it got so bad that her school kept a box where they wrote down all of the times that they thought that she was being hurt at home. One teacher even gave Zahra their home phone number and said to reach out if she ever needed anything. The school called Caldwell County Department of Social Services, who would show up at Zahra's home, but they apparently didn't do much because things just continued to get worse and worse. Now my question is, if this was all happening and when it was all happening, where was her dad, Adam? Which your guess is as good as mine, because nobody ever seemed to mention him when they spoke of these horrible things that they were witnessing, which was physical and verbal, because oftentimes Elisa would also scream at Zahra when she had accidents, such as wetting her pants. Another neighbor named Kayla would see Zahra covered in bruises, but said that even with what was going on, Zahra was still a happy little girl who just craved to be loved. Now, at one point when Elisa was physically harming Zahra, Elisa hit her hand off of her prosthetic leg, but Elisa told Adam that she had broken her hand because she fell. So I don't know what the truth is. Apparently Adam was maybe just clueless or chose to live in the dark and turn a blind eye to what was going on, but there was definitely something afoot. At one point, Elisa also told Kayla that social services kept coming around and that she was being really irritated about strangers being in her business. And when social services came to visit, Elisa told them that Zahra was getting black eyes from the chemotherapy. A hearing resource teacher at Zahra's school thought that Adam and Elisa should reach out to Speedway Children's Charities to attempt to get hearing aids for Zahra because it would just make her life so much easier. And in May of 2010, a couple of months after starting school, she got those hearing aids. Elisa took her to Charlotte Motor Speedway to pick them up and try them on for the first time.
It sounds better than without them, so I can actually hear more than without my hearing aid.
Onlookers said that Elisa seemed really emotional when Zahra put the hearing aids on, like she was genuinely happy for her stepdaughter. But that nice moment did not last long, because just a couple of weeks later, a report was made for Elisa. 2 teenage girls named Corinne and Brandy saw Zahra crying and walking up that hill that the neighborhood kids played on. The girls knew that Elisa used that method as a form of punishment for Zahra, because when she walked up the hill, it really hurt her leg due to the prosthetic. So Corinne and Brandy felt really bad for Zahra, so they tried to help her. But then when Elisa saw them, she came out of the trailer like a bat out of hell and started just berating them, saying, "I'm going to teach these 2 teenagers a lesson and whip their butts and da-da-da-da-da." So finally, Brandy's mom stepped in, and Elisa stopped and then went back inside. But the report didn't really end up doing much. Both Elisa and Adam were pretty familiar with the police, though, because the day before Brandy and Corinne filed their report with the police, they were both arrested and charged with communicating threats through accusations. And Adam was individually charged with assault with a deadly weapon because they threatened Brittany Bentley, who was Elisa's niece. Also, they threatened her fiancé, Zachary Tyler, and, get this, their 7-month-old daughter, due to Brittany owing them money. And you heard that correctly. They threatened a baby. And it also wasn't just a verbal threat. They would literally try to run them off the road multiple times, which at that point, Brittany paid them back, but Elisa wanted more money, almost like a tax or a penalty, I guess. So she and Adam went as far as to terrorize this couple with tasers. They both threatened death upon all 3 of them if they didn't pay up, including the baby. I mean, it was really horrible. But somehow, once again, they weren't being held accountable. And the charges and the arrests, again, just did not lead to much. So not too long after all of the arrest drama, in the late summer of 2010, Elisa and Adam decided to move once again, not too far this time, into a rented home in Hickory. And upon moving out of their trailer, their neighbor said they never really saw Zahra, and their new neighbors never really saw her either. The only account of anyone seeing her was an employee at a local furniture store who saw her with Elisa on September 25th. When Elisa and Adam moved, they had decided not to enroll Zahra into the public school system for her 5th grade year either. They apparently wanted to homeschool her. However, it has been wildly debated if she was ever actually homeschooled or if Elisa used it as a way to get social services off of her back, because then teachers wouldn't be seeing Zahra 5 days a week, constantly keeping track of things that were going on and the harm that was being inflicted upon Zahra. So around 5:30 a.m. on October 9th, 2010, Elisa called 911 because she noticed a fire going on in the backyard when she woke up that morning.
My husband works for a tree maintenance company, and our backyard's on fire. Your what's on fire? The backyard. We've got big mulch piles and wood piles because we sell firewood.
When the firefighters arrived at the scene, they ended up putting out the fire, which ended up being a small pile of mulch. But one of the firefighters noticed that Adam's work truck, which was a silver 1996 Chevy Tahoe, had the passenger door open, and a white business-style envelope was sitting on the windshield. So the firefighter called the police to further investigate. So Officer Rollins from the Hickory Police Department stopped by the scene and wanted to see what was inside that envelope. And as he got closer to the truck, he smelled the strong scent of gasoline fumes coming from inside. He snatched the envelope, and it ended up having a note inside of it, which ended up being a ransom note. And it read, "Mr. Coffee, you like being in control. Now who is in control? We have your daughter, and your pot-smoking redhead son is next unless you do what is asked. $1 million, unmarked. We'll be in touch soon, no cops." Now, Mr. Coffee was Mark Coffee, who was not only Adam's boss, but his landlord as well. So the whole thing seemed pretty sketchy, and not once did Adam or Elisa check on Zahra during this to make sure that she was okay. So right away, police figured that the best thing to do was to first get a hold of Mark and make sure that he and his daughter were okay. So police quickly got a hold of Mark, and they learned that his daughter and him were safe and that nothing weird was going on at their house. So because of that, the police considered the fire arson, and then they went home. Later that day at 2 p.m., another 911 call was made, but this time it was by Adam.
Catawba County 911.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
I need police.
How bizarre is it that he was acting so calm, even asking "how are you doing" before getting out that Zahra was missing? Now, I couldn't find the full audio of Adam's 911 call, but I did find the transcript. And honestly, pretty shocking how he was acting, being that he was calling to report his child as missing. He said that Zahra was nowhere to be found, and he mentioned that he thought that maybe the person who had left that ransom note thought that Zahra was Mark's daughter and mistakenly took her. He said that due to his work schedule, he hadn't seen Zahra since 2:30 a.m. when she was asleep. So the 911 dispatcher was confused as to why he hadn't seen his daughter since 2:30 in the morning, which was 12 hours prior. And Adam's response was, "No, like I said, we had all that drama last night, and me and my wife, we went back to bed, and my daughter I think she's coming into puberty because she's hitting the brooding stage," starts laughing, "so we only see her when she comes out when she wants something, and that's about it." Yeah, you heard that right. Adam laughed and also made a joke when reporting his daughter as missing. I also think that it seems a little young for a kid to be wanting absolutely nothing to do with her parents, but I don't know, maybe. So Adam also told the police about the fire and how he thought that it was put together in order to maybe form a distraction. Now, something else that stood out as pretty odd in all of this about this call was that Adam told the dispatcher that Zahra had a prosthetic leg, and he said that the kidnapper must have taken that with him as well. But what stands as being rather peculiar in all of that is that Zahra would not have slept with her prosthetic on. And it seemed evident that according to Adam, she must have been taken from her bed at some point in the middle of the night. So would the kidnapper really have taken her and her prosthetic legs separately? So the police went to Adam and Elisa's home to search the property, but they ultimately didn't find anything. But the news of Zahra's disappearance spread through Hickory, and the FBI ended up joining the case as well. And then an Amber Alert was put out. At 10:45 a.m., the morning after she was reported as missing, Elisa was taken into custody by police, but it was not for anything related to Zahra. Instead, it was for failure to return property and for writing bad checks. Right around this time as well, Elisa failed a polygraph. Some of the questions that were asked were if she knew who wrote the ransom note, if she had hurt Zahra, and if she knew anyone who did hurt her. And apparently she was acting pretty elusive during the poly screening. That same day, on Sunday, October 10th, the South Carolina Search and Rescue Dog Association was requested by the FBI so that they could help assist in the search of Zahra's home and property. The search and rescue dog walked around both vehicles that were on the property, Adam's work truck and their other car, a burgundy Toyota Camry, and the dog gave a positive detection for the presence of human remains. So both vehicles were seized to be searched for evidence, where FBI and police found a ton of other shady items, such as lighters, gas cans, and different drug paraphernalia. Police also took 3 swabs of what they believed to be blood from Adam's work trunk. Now, throughout that day, police talked to all of the neighbors in the area, passing out Zahra's photo and asking if they could search their property too. They were just trying to figure out what happened to Zahra. The following morning, on October 11th, Adam went on Good Morning America with the police to discuss his daughter's disappearance. And that's when he told the news outlet that he thought that there was a chance that Elisa was somehow involved. But at that point, nobody was fully convinced that Adam wasn't involved either. He gave mixed answers as to when the last time he saw Zahra was. At first, it was 2:30 a.m. the night before, then it was October 7th because of his schedule at work, but it was also being reported that the last time was October 6th, and the police report for Zahra said that the last time that she was with her family was on October 8th, the day before she was reported as missing. And on that day, Adam, Elisa, and Zahra all went to Oktoberfest together. So at that point, Adam wasn't really doing so hot in the court of public opinion or in the police's eyes. And the Hickory Police Department even made a statement saying, "We can't confirm anyone has seen Zahra within the past month. Without this information, we cannot positively select the area to search for her, and also cannot confirm with any confidence how long Zahra has been missing." So police also took their search to Morganton that day, where Adam had worked, and police dog picked up a scent in multiple areas, including piles of mulch, piles of logs, and a wood chipper. And the plot continued to thicken later that day as it went on, because Elisa admitted to the police that she had written the ransom note herself, which then led to her getting charged with felony obstruction of justice. Now, Elisa said that she wrote it because she was pissed off at her landlord, Mark, which honestly, I think there's probably way more reasonable ways to go about solving a dispute rather than like ransom, but apparently that's what Elisa chose to do and her way of dealing with it. So the following day, police called off Zahra's Amber Alert because now they knew that Elisa had faked the ransom note. They shifted this whole missing persons and possible kidnapping case into a homicide investigation. So on top of the one charge for the ransom note, Elisa was also charged with over 10 more things not related to Zahra, this including the writing bad checks, larceny, and driving around with a revoked license. And as more information continued to come out, people who knew Elisa came out of the woodwork talking about their experiences with her and how they had seen her mistreat Zahra, which included a lot of physical and verbal manipulation and even physical attacks and assault. Things also started coming up about her past, starting in childhood. Apparently, she was a really deceitful person, even at a young age, and she became very rebellious. Her mom would become physical when it came to trying to control Elisa, and her dad was kind of aloof through all of this. As a teenager, she was pretty well liked in school, but she ended up dropping out in high school. And there was also that common theme with all of her husbands that she had and how she got them. They all had a hard time finding love, and some of them even had some physical disabilities. So she would prey on these lonely men who wanted company and then win them over with whatever love spell she was putting on them and then just completely wreak havoc on their lives. She would do that through the way that she treated them and through some awful financial choices. And then once she would basically had tapped the men completely dry, she would ghost them and then she would find her next victim. Hence why she was married to 3 different men at one point. And it was so bad that in 2008, she had a ton of small claims court judgments against her. And while she tried her best to get out of trouble on her own, I mean, she had 42 different addresses from 2001 to 2008, as well as different aliases. But she just kept going with these lies and just kept amplifying it, if you will. And she knew that now it was time to think bigger, global, if you will. And that is where Adam came into play. Because he was exactly what she was looking for. Not just some lonely schmuck, but someone who lived in a completely different country. So it was a perfect way for Elisa to kind of just go under the radar for a little bit. The public also then started doing their own research on Elisa, similar to how people start to comb through any suspects on social media today. But in 2010, it was through MySpace, and people would go through everybody's MySpace with a fine-tooth comb. Now, as we talked about earlier, her account was pretty dark, and her last login to her account was on October 8th, 2010, the day before Adam called in Zahra as a missing person. And the mood that Elisa left on her account, because you were able to let you set a mood on MySpace that your friends could see, her mood was crazy. Feeling crazy. Elisa had pictures of Zahra on her account, and there was one where she was actually dressed in black, and the photo had the caption, "The Dark Child, LOL." The police spent a good bit of the day at Adam's work searching around the areas that the dogs were alerting at, including a 50-foot wide pile of mulch. But after a long day of searching the pile and having the wood chipper thoroughly examined by authorities, nothing came up in the search. The day after Adam's workplace was searched, on October 13th, Elisa made her court appearance, and between all of her charges, her bail was set at $45,000. Since Zahra had disappeared, the police had received tons of tips regarding where she might be. But one tip came in from a pretty reliable unknown source who was told that not too long before she was reported missing, Zahra was at a house on County Line Road in Hildebrand, around 10 minutes from where she lived. And she was there alone with two men, cousins named Timothy Sammy Young and Louis James. And they lived in this house, and they weren't related to her. Now, Timothy Sammy James, who goes by Sammy, apparently Sammy, told the source that he had, quote, done something very bad and needed to leave town. And according to the source, when Elisa did come back to get Zahra from this house, Zahra had blood running down her legs near her genital area. And it was clear that both of these men that were there that day attacked her in a very gruesome and sexual way. Now, the source said that one of the guys and Elisa had some sort of relationship going on. The source told police that they asked the guy who was there if they killed Zahra, and the guy just said that she might have been hit in the head. Now, the tip was a bit confusing, so if you're a little confused, you're not alone. It was a little confusing, and it also wasn't from a direct source. But police figured that they would look into it further regardless, because they didn't have a ton to go off at this point. And now it's being reported that Zahra's at this house with these guys, that she was bloody and may have been possibly assaulted, and that these guys had a connection to the stepmother, Elisa. What's the connection? Why would she have dropped Zahra off there? What was going on here? What was the truth? So police needed to investigate. So the police went to that house on County Line Road in Hildebrand, and upon arriving, they instantly noticed a mattress with a big dark stain on it in the yard. Police knocked on the door and they talked to Louis, who said that the stain on the mattress was from him because he had urinated on it by accident when he was really drunk and he wanted the smell to go away. So police asked if he knew who Zahra was, and he said that he did. He remembered seeing her at Christmas and thought that she was really nice and a respectful little girl, but he also said that he didn't think that she had ever been to his house. Police questioned Louis for 10 hours and even gave him a polygraph, which he passed. Louis was really helpful and offered to assist police however he could, but the police let him go, and they never ended up testing that mattress stain. At that point, it wasn't made clear if police ever even got a hold of Sammy to question him, who was the other cousin involved in this whole story, right? Now, that Friday on October 15th, Adam allowed police to do another search of his home, and this time, a mattress was taken away for evidence. Even though it was taken away, the police were not saying whose mattress it was. So as the days continued, more and more was coming out about Zahra's life, and also about the harm that she endured from Elisa. It was being reported that Zahra wasn't allowed out of her bedroom except for 5 minutes at a time, and it was only so that she was allowed to eat for those 5 minutes. And so many other people were now coming forward too, talking about the bruises that they would constantly see on her. A photo began to circulate of Zahra from August 9th that a family friend had taken of her, and that ended up being the last known photo that was ever taken of Zahra from anyone. Zahra had a bruise under her eye in the photo, and apparently Elisa didn't want the picture taken of Zahra, but the friend who took the photo said that she seemed upset and that maybe getting her picture taken might brighten her spirits. So the friend didn't think twice about the bruise at the moment because Elisa was always talking about how Zahra got so many bruises from being clumsy. But then background reports also started coming out, and that's when they started revealing more about Elisa's lengthy and muddied marital history that we talked about earlier. After more interrogations with Elisa and Adam, police decided to focus their search to the local landfill because they were hoping to find any information that would lead them to where Zahra was, and that included locating her prosthetic leg. But unfortunately, nothing came from that search either. On October 20th, Elisa's bond was raised from $45,000 to $65,000 due to her being considered a flight risk. At the bond hearing, Elisa's lawyer attempted to get her bond down to $10,000, but the judge said that there were, quote, disturbing and unsettling allegations that were made against Elisa, and that basically a decrease in the bond amount was not going to happen. Elisa's children were also at this bond hearing, and she was there virtually. Her daughter Amber testified at the hearing about how her mother scared her and how they moved quite a bit growing up. Amber also said that Elisa over the last year had been talking to a guy on the internet who lived in England, and the man sent over $10,000, and that the day before she was arrested, Elisa told her daughter that she wanted to get out of North Carolina. So, a ton of circumstantial evidence, right? And a lot of shady things, but nothing concrete. And nothing that would lead to Zahra's whereabouts. However, then a breakthrough came on October 24th, 2010, just a couple of weeks after Zahra was reported as missing. Elisa was spotted with police riding around Hudson near where she used to live, which is kind of weird, right? Why would she be driving around with police? She was in jail on a massive bond, so it was strange that she was out with officers on the road, unless she was leading them somewhere. And as it turns out, she had told her lawyer where the police could find Zahra, all in order and all in exchange to avoid being charged with first-degree murder or being charged with capital punishment. It was believed that she was scared into divulging this information due to Zahra's mattress being found, because it was around this time that the police announced that they found Zahra's mattress in a local landfill the week before, and the DNA on it matched what they were looking for. It actually wasn't the police who even found it. It was the employees of the landfill who made this discovery. So Elisa was probably feeling the walls starting to cave in around her at this point. But brace yourself, because it honestly gets pretty gruesome for what it is she told her lawyer. She told her lawyer that Zahra had been dismembered, and that latex gloves were used, and that her body was dispersed in several different areas. Elisa said that Zahra's blood and other body fluids, as well as bone fragments, were washed down their bathtub drain. She also said that she and Adam put Zahra's body parts in multiple trash bags and then wrapped those garbage bags with a bed comforter and a cover for a car and dispersed Zahra's remains in various locations. So in between Elisa directing the police on where to go, Adam was then arrested on Monday, October 25th. But not for what you might assume. He was arrested for charges also unrelated to Zahra, for things from before, regarding assault with a deadly weapon, failure to return rental property, and even writing bad checks, just like Elisa. His bond was set at $7,000, but only a few days later, he was able to get a bondsman in place to then post his bail. And when he was released, he had so many people heckling him outside as he was just free to leave, because not everybody believed he was innocent, even though his arrest and his charges weren't for Zahra. But over the course of a couple days, Elisa directed authorities to multiple locations not too far from where she lived, and she did a walkthrough of her home, one being the Fox Ridge Apartments in Hickory, where she claimed that she and Adam had discarded Zahra's prosthetic leg at. Another location was Fair Value Grocery Store, and the dumpster for that store, which is in Hudson. And that's where she said that the comforter and that car cover that was used to hide Zahra's body parts was thrown out. FBI was inside Zahra's home, which was guarded from the public, and crews were working hard outside, digging holes and going through mulch piles, just looking for any evidence they could find. During a search warrant that was later revealed to the public, authorities removed a bunch of items from Zahra's home, including blood swabs, 3 latex gloves, cut sections from a wall, flooring and a door frame, a bathroom drain trap, a stun gun, 6 cans of paint, a syringe, and so much more. So it seems kind of odd, right? Like, why all the paint cans or paint at all? Well, when investigators were searching the home, they found blood spatter on Zahra's pink bedroom wall, and some of the blood had been covered up with the new paint. So nothing really came out of the search when Elisa was with police as far as finding a body. But even so, police continued to comb through the areas that Elisa directed them to. And on October 27th, at one of the locations that she took them to, Dudley Shoals Road in Granite Falls, not too far from where Elisa used to rent, Zahra's prosthetic leg was found in a brushy area. It wasn't buried, but it was definitely attempted to be concealed, and it was wrapped in white garbage bags. Hickory police were able to confirm that it was Zahra's leg, and they were able to do this by getting a hold of her medical records from Australia, where she initially got that leg, and they were able to match the serial number back to it. Now, because of that massive discovery, police decided to hone in on that location, which then led to a bone being found the following week in an area where hunters usually throw out dead deer. And after getting it tested, the DNA of that bone matched Zahra. As the days continued, more remains were found, all not too far from where the prosthetic leg was initially found. It was all on the edge of Gunpowder Creek. Now, in the beginning of November, Emily, Zahra's birth mother, flew from Australia to give her DNA to help further the investigation. And in a heartbreaking, absolutely gut-wrenching detail, as it turns out, Emily had been searching for her daughter for years. And every time she would find Adam, he would disappear again. Finally, she found him through online searching, but then in a twisted turn of horrible events, she found him too late. Because just 3 days after she found Adam online, Zahra was declared as missing. After finding out that Zahra was missing, when Emily was asked if she felt like there was any chance of Zahra being alive, she said, "Is there any hope that she's alive? I don't feel it. They reckon mothers just have this bond with their children, and I think having any hope in me makes it hurt more with what they're finding and the way that they were saying that she was treated. The only hope I have in me now is that she is gone, so that she is not being hurt anymore. Why would it happen that I find her and 3 days later this happens? It's just mean. I don't want them to find more because it will tell a story that I don't want to hear. She found me to find her, and I like to believe that. She was already gone when I found her, and she found me to tell her story and to find her and put her to rest. I can't explain the anger and the hurt. He had no right to do any of it, to keep her from me. I felt robbed before she was taken for good, and now I just feel broken." Now, during the investigation, this guy named Eric, who was the owner of Serial Killers Inc. and a crime memorabilia dealer, which I didn't even know those exist, he wrote to Elisa while she was in jail, and she wrote him back twice. And what she had to say was pretty strange and really showed how disconnected she was from Zahra. She talked about how she missed her warm water bed at home and how she was annoyed that she had to cover up her tattoos and piercings. But one thing that she did say did give a little bit of insight into Zahra, and that was, "We really didn't kill her, but what he did after the fact is kind of horrifying. It makes me scared of him. He knows what happened to Zahra, and yet I'm the one in here. At least for now. The cops know where she is and what he has done, so I probably am going to go ahead and file for divorce. I've lost my whole life anyway." She also talked about how she felt that there wouldn't have been so much media attention if Zahra didn't beat cancer and was from Australia. She would also add weird endings to the letters, such as "Dark Love," "Vampires Rule," and "You're My Dark Heart." Now, I'm not sure if she was trying to sway Eric into being her next victim or love paramour or what, but it was bizarre. And at the end of one of her letters, she wrote, "Some girls want to be princesses when they grow up. I want to be a vampire." She's never talked about loving or missing Zahra. It was just always about herself and also apparently about vampires. Okay. But Elisa was right on one thing. Adam was throwing all of the blame at her. He was even driving around with a sign on his car in the window that said Zahra was abused by her stepmom. Although not everyone was against Elisa, one of her cousins, who chose to remain anonymous, spoke with the media saying that they had been talking to Elisa while she was in jail and that she would talk about how much she missed Zahra. The cousin touched on her frustrations with Adam, saying, "Adam Baker has a lot of the answers. What we do know about him is that he doesn't believe in God. He is very into paganism. He is ridden around with a sign on his window that says Zahra was abused by her stepmother. If this is true, then why didn't he, the biological father, put a stop to it and protect his little girl? Why didn't he beg the public for someone to bring his daughter home? Why has he not personally searched for Zahra? How could a loving father begin his 911 call with, "Hello, how are you doing?" He needs to answer these questions. The cousin did say, however, that her and the family were divided as to whether or not Elisa was involved, and that they were going to wait a little bit longer until more evidence came out until they formed a solid conclusion. So after all of the remains that were found were tested, it was confirmed to the public through a press conference on Friday, November 12th, that Zahra was dead.
Investigators are devastated that we're not able to find Zahra alive and bring her home safely.
Police Chief Tom Adkins went on to say, "As investigators, we are trained to follow leads, but we never give up the hope that the evidence may take us in the wrong direction and that the outcome might be different. Investigators, agents, and officers who worked on this case are devastated that they could not find Zahra alive and bring her home safely. We have recovered enough physical evidence to believe that we have found Zahra." On Tuesday, November 16th, around 1,500 people gathered together in order to honor Zahra in a vigil sponsored by the Children's Protection Council on what would have been Zahra's 11th birthday. Now, Adam didn't show up to the vigil because he claimed that he didn't want the focus to be put on him, but he said that he did watch it at home with his lawyer and his mom. So then more information continued to come out as time went on and as the investigation was still underway. At the start of 2011, it came out that Elisa told police that Zahra died on September 24th, 2010, and that she died from natural causes, and that the next day, she and Adam dismembered her, and then disposed of the remains because they didn't know what else to do. But the date did not add up, because the last known person to see Zahra was someone who worked at a furniture store, and they saw her when she came in with Elisa, and that was on September 25th. It was also revealed that through a search warrant of both Adam and Elisa's phone records, Adam's cell phone GPS on the day of September 25th didn't put him in the areas where Zahra's remains were found. He was at work. Elisa's records, however, did put her there at all the locations. Another search warrant that was unsealed from November 2010 regarding an extensive computer search for Elisa and Adam found something pretty cryptic. On September 22nd, just 2 days before Elisa claimed Zahra died, a user on IMVU by the screen name of WXll was in the chat room with the couple, and there was one other person in there named Aaron Young. One of Elisa's ex-husbands, who she remained very, very close to, so close in fact that she told Adam he was her brother, was Aaron Young. Zahra even knew Aaron pretty well, which, yeah, you cannot make this stuff up. He was being portrayed as her brother, not her ex-husband. They were all in a chat room together. It makes your head spin. Anyway, the conversation was about a chainsaw massacre role-playing scenario. Now, it wasn't made clear what that really meant or who would have been involved in it if it played out. But being that Zahra was dismembered so shortly after that conversation is absolutely bone-chilling. Zahra's autopsy was released in February of 2011, but it was not an easy task at all, being that the medical examiners didn't have her entire body. Her right arm, majority of her legs, and most importantly, her skull were not found. Her remains were sent off to multiple different medical examiners who believed that the dismemberment happened by 2 different instruments, and that they were most likely done after Zahra was dead. Her cause of death was ruled as undetermined homicidal violence, which was the complete opposite of what Elisa had been saying happened. Elisa had been claiming that she and Adam didn't kill Zahra, but that she died of natural causes. But that's not what the autopsy was saying. The autopsy also said that there were not many medical reports for Zahra during her time in the United States, which again is odd, because someone with her medical history should have been being checked regularly. So finally, on February 21st, 2011, Elisa was indicted with abusing, murdering, and violating Zahra's body. But no charges were made against Adam. Police felt that there wasn't enough evidence to charge anyone except for Elisa for Zahra's murder. And Adam actually spoke out, and he went on to say, "I'm extremely grateful that Hickory Police and everybody else has taken their time, gone through everything properly, and come to the conclusion that they should have come to. I had no involvement with Zahra's death or dismemberment. Elisa is very manipulative and abusive to me, very controlling. Plus, with my work, I was gone first thing in the morning and didn't get home until late. I was told that Zahra was in bed because Zahra normally went to bed early. I checked every night, and from what I could tell, she was in bed. It looked like she, or something, was in bed. So Elisa entered a not guilty plea in May, and also in June of 2011 for unrelated charges, such as identity theft, federal charges of planning to distribute oxycodone, and more. It wasn't until September 15th that Elisa entered into a guilty plea.
Do you agree that there are sufficient facts or evidence to support this plea, as well as the element of each offense that you pled guilty to? And do you agree there are sufficient facts to support the existence of the aggravating factor? Do you enter this plea of your own free will, understanding what you're doing?
The plea was for the charges regarding Zahra, as well as some of her unrelated charges. Some new details came out during the hearing, and one big one being that the police revealed that they found what they believed to be the saw that was used to dismember Zahra. Zahra's mother, Emily, also spoke at this hearing.
None of us know how we're meant to deal with such unimaginable things. Maybe to drill home the pure evil that Elisa has committed, I should reach down and find the strength to discuss how Zahra was pulled apart like some human puzzle and discarded like rubbish for wildlife to graze on.
Adam spoke as well about the pain that he was enduring. Elisa's guilty plea meant that instead of a maximum of 60 years in prison, she was only sentenced to 18. In the months to follow, Emily returned to Australia, and Adam worked toward doing the same. Adam did a 60 Minutes episode in Australia with an interview and was still being elusive as to when it came to the detail of when he last saw Zahra alive.
At the time of Zahra's disappearance, you seemed uncertain about when you last saw her.
Yeah.
Are you able to clear that up?
It's very hard to talk about stuff with the case at the moment because it still is a ongoing investigation. I really don't want to do anything that may impede any justice for Zahra.
I guess it's the one thing that people have trouble with.
Oh, yeah.
And you understand that?
Yeah, I understand that.
In January of 2012, he was deported back to Australia since he was never actually given his green card and was illegally in the United States. When he was deported, they did allow him to take Zahra's remains with him so that he could bury them in his family's plot in Zahra's homeland, the place that she loved, the place she adored, the place she never wanted to leave. A few months later, in April of 2012, a man was hunting in a wooded area in Caldwell County, close to North Carolina Highway 268. He discovered what looked to be a human skull around 20 yards or so off of a dirt road. The man called the police, who then had the North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office and the crime lab come and check everything out. And they determined that the skull was in fact the skull that belonged to Zahra. Though the remains were able to bring those who loved her a little bit more closure, the skull didn't give investigators any more details as to how Zahra died. In March of 2013, even more time was added to Elisa's prison time, 10 years to be exact, this due to felony drug charges. When the judge ruled the 10-year sentencing, Elisa became visibly ill. And then the judge had to take a 10-minute recess in order for Elisa to gain her composure. That same year, Elisa did an interview with 60 Minutes in Australia as well. The news program went to the maximum security North Carolina Correctional Institution for Women in Raleigh, and that's where they spoke to her. In the prison, Elisa is apparently beyond hated, and she stays in isolation for the most part. She started out talking about how she struggles with sleeping at night because of Zahra.
How do you sleep at night knowing that a little girl, a little disabled girl, was cut into pieces and thrown away?
Some nights are hard, but I miss her.
Do you really?
Yes, ma'am.
Then Elisa discussed the moment that she found Zahra unresponsive.
My first thought was CPR. And so I immediately started CPR. I worked on her for probably about 30 minutes and couldn't get her back. Begging the whole time for God not to take her, you know. Right then, I should have called 911. But I got scared.
Of what?
I didn't know what to do. I've never been faced with anything like that. I've never...
If you'd done CPR, you'd dial 911, wouldn't you?
Most people would have, yes.
Elisa alleges she called Zahra's father Adam and that it was he who dismembered Zahra.
If we're going to believe anything you say, why would you ring the police and say, I'm not having a part of this? That is the most heinous thing to do.
He was my husband.
Please. That's not good enough. It's not. It's just not good enough. You know that.
I know.
Elisa went on to discuss how the phone records weren't right and that Adam was there with her, not at work. Although Elisa's appeal deadline has long expired, back in 2016 to be specific, she planned to attempt to build an appeal anyway. However, luckily nothing really came from it, and she is still serving her murder sentence. But get this, according to the North Carolina inmate log, she will be released from state prison on July 2nd, 2025, which is just almost unimaginable after how violent her crime was. But then right after that, she will begin her 10-year federal prison sentence that she received back in 2013 for the charges regarding conspiracy with the prescription drugs and all of that. Since she has been in prison, she clearly has not been on her best behavior either. She has received infractions for things like theft of property, fighting, misusing and selling medications, and her most recent two, one in June of 2022 and one just this past October, were for refusing to take a drug or breath test, and also for disobeying orders. A playground was built in Zahra's honor called Zahra Baker All Children's Playground, and this was at the park in Hickory. Zahra's mother and father are quietly living their lives in Australia, not together obviously, and have remained out of the spotlight since their daughter's death. That is except for when Emily urged people who were leaving toys at Zahra's home in Hickory to instead donate the toys so that they wouldn't get ruined out in the rain. In 2010, Zahra's elementary school in Hudson also created a garden in her name due to when she was there and her helping pick up trash around the school and wanting to just have this beautification area where the students could go and just form this beautiful club. This case really was a tough one, as any cases with children involved. It's a shame that so many people failed Zahra in her short time here on Earth because so many people saw the neglect and just didn't do enough. Zahra was a brave and strong little girl who was resilient and just overcame so much in her life and wanted to just make life happy and enjoyable. And for that, she was murdered and her body was desecrated. Now, I still have a lot of questions about it, and many stem from Adam's involvement. Was he really that clueless? Could he just have left his phone at work that day, and that's why the phone was showing that it was at the work location? I mean, that's an easy explanation, right? I'm not trying to say he's guilty if he's not, but there certainly is reason to have doubt, I would think. Also, weeks went by and he didn't notice that his daughter was missing. Plus, why did he continue to act so deceptive when it came to the last time that he saw his daughter? I also still don't know the story about those two cousins in that house. I couldn't get an exact answer that was verified. What was their involvement? Why was she dropped off there? I hate to even think this. Was she sold to them? Why did the stepmother drop her off to these guys who evidently sexually assaulted her? So I'm curious to know all of your thoughts on this case, on Adam, on everything, because I just don't know what to make about it. All I know is that Zahra deserved for someone to care way more about her than they did. It's also interesting to think that Elisa could get out at some point. Granted, she will be in her 70s, but I would be curious to see if she still is continuing, even in prison, to be up to her old ways, like pen paling and finding these vulnerable men and trying to take advantage of them. I don't know, it just kind of seems like her core character. But let me know what you guys think about this case in the comment section below. My mind is truly spinning. I don't even know what to make of it. So sound off in the comments. Thank you guys for tuning in today and hearing Zahra's story and tuning into another episode of 10 to Life. Until the next one, stay safe.